Enviar nota de voz al group chat. Buenos días, ¿quieren desayuno de McDonald's?
Guille dice, eres la mejor. Un sausage McMuffin, please. Laura dice, sí, sausage McGriddles para mí. Ale dice, ya comí, pero me traes un hash browns, love you.
Mi colega favorita, Jill. Llévate todos tus favoritos de desayuno como un sausage McMuffin por unos pocos dólares, solo en el $1, $2, $3 menú de McDonald's. Precios y participación pueden variar, no puede ser combinado con un combo meal.
I'm John Bachelor. This is Friends of History Debating Society. I welcome Svetlana Lakova, the historian Svetlana Lakova, to help me tell the story of Crossfire Hurricane, a chronology. Crossfire Hurricane begins in the summer of 2016. The last time we spoke with Svetlana, it was mid-December 2016, after the election of Donald Trump, in the last days of the Obama administration. And in the middle of that month, Svetlana communicates with her mentor, her advisor at Cambridge University, Christopher Andrew. In the middle of that month also, after that exchange, Svetlana hears from a Times of London reporter. His name is O'Neill. At that point, Svetlana has said, there is nothing to this construction that I have anything to do with Russian security, that I have anything to do with General Flynn, nothing to it whatsoever. And Christopher Andrew, in several ways, comforts Svetlana by saying there's nothing to it, they've made a mistake, it's all stupid. Svetlana then gets busy with her life, which includes the birth of her first child. It is now late February 2017. Donald Trump is the President of the United States. Barack Obama's administration has retired. James Comey remains the director of the FBI. That's a significant post. However, many other of the senior officials of the Obama administration have moved on. And then, Svetlana, a very good evening to you. It is now February 28th, 2017, and you hear from the Wall Street Journal. What do you hear? Why is the Wall Street Journal seeking to talk to you? Good evening to you.
Good evening, John. I get an email from Wall Street Journal. So at that point, as you said, I've just given birth. So I'm recuperating from that and just dealing with the normal, I suppose, completely new thing of being a mom. And, you know, my computer pings and I get this email from Wall Street Journal and they ask me about my relationship with General Flynn. I didn't really know how to react. So General Flynn is somebody I met in 2014 when he was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency for President Obama at Cambridge University. We exchanged a few work emails and that's pretty much it, other than I heard in the news that he became, you know, the national security advisor for the, Trump administration. But that was like way, you know, outside my, interests, in London, England, which is to give birth. And I also had a deadline to complete my first book called the Spy Change History, which, you know, you and I discussed. So anyway, so within all of that, I suddenly get this email and I don't know what relationship they're talking about. However, because there was this article in the Financial Times we've previously discussed where my advisor, my academic advisor was heavily criticized, and there was this whole talk about, you know, some kind of bad activity happening in Cambridge. I call him up, Christopher Andrew, and I say, what's going on? I get this approach from Wall Street Journal. What is happening? What should I do? And he says to me, oh, I can't talk. I'm so upset. I can't talk. All these journalists are calling up. Why don't you go and speak to Neil Kent? Neil Kent is another academic within the group of the Cambridge Intelligence Seminar. So we arrange a conversation with Neil Kent, and Neil Kent tells me, I'm so upset. Wall Street Journal called me up, and they, so this is another Cambridge professor. So apparently they've been calling up around Cambridge, And apparently, Wall Street Journal journalists were suggesting to people that I had affairs with General Flynn and with Christopher Andrew, my own academic advisor. As somebody who neither had affairs with any of those people, nor even could understand what it's about, I was in utter shock. So I wrote back an email through my husband, which said that Svetlana was really unwell, recuperating from her childbirth. But to make it clear, I never met with General Flynn after the one meeting at Cambridge University, which we were surrounded by 12 people. And there is no inappropriate relationship with General Flynn or with Christopher Andrew or with anyone else, other than obviously we met once in 2014 and that's it. Nothing has happened since. And that obviously these accusations are completely false. I then get an email again, kind of following up from the Wall Street Journal.
On the same day, February 28th. They respond.
Right.
They respond. It's a response from the journal.
And it's all, right. And it's all a bit complicated because obviously I'm in one time zone and they're in another time zone. And it's a little bit foggy in my mind because, as I said, I'm kind of mostly in bed at that point, after childbirth. But, there's another email and then, what happens is a call with them. And on the call, they keep going on about how they were given this information by their source, that I approached General Flynn, before the dinner. And John, did we remind people what the dinner was about, by the way?
Well, I'll tell the story quickly. It was a dinner at Cambridge University hosted by a very distinguished man who had previously been head of MI6. Svetlana is invited, so is Christopher Andrew, as a revered member of the Cambridge community working on Russian intelligence. She's invited to sit in a dinner in which a number of dignitaries attend. It goes on, and at the end of the dinner, Svetlana is asked or invited by her colleagues to show General Flynn a postcard reproduction on her iPad of a note dealing with Joseph Stalin, Zhukashvili, when he was in exile in Siberia. It's an historical document that Cambridge University is very pleased with. That was the end of the conversation. Svetlana then met her now husband, then good friend, David, and they left the dinner together. That was the end of Svetlana's experience with General Flynn at this dinner. Pembroke College was a setting, the paneled room, the extremely good flatware, all of that you can imagine in your minds. But we're talking about a dinner that took place in the winter of 2014 as a perk for everyone to meet this distinguished visitor from America. Svetlana, have I left out any details that you think are important?
No, I think that's spot on, other than the fact that I didn't sit anywhere near General Flynn. I was the junior, sorry, pardon me, I was the junior person, so right. I sat very, very far away from General Flynn. And but the rest of it is completely spot on. He was the distinguished visitor. Majority of the dinner was spent. And
you conveyed this information to the Wall Street Journal on February 28th, the last day of February of that year. You conveyed
correct.
All right.
That's right.
And they now have the facts as we've established them. You've given them to the journal.
That's the thing.
Right.
That's right. And this is where, as somebody who never had to deal with something like that in my life before, what I couldn't understand is so they said to me the three things, right, that they're going to write about. One is that I approach General Flynn before the dinner. Two, that I sat next to him. So first of all, the phone call with Wall Street Journal and the emails are happening in February 17, so that's 3 years after the dinner to the date. So the dinner was on February 28, 2014, and they're approaching me on February 28, 2017.
Right.
Right. So that's precisely 3 years to the date. So first of all, that's that. The second thing is that and that's, I suppose, when I first began to really realize things are really bad. Because no matter what I said to them, I thought, okay, maybe they received this wrong information, right? So all I have to do, this is a reputable, U.S. newspaper. They received clearly the wrong information. All I have to do is tell them the truth. Right. And once I tell them the truth, it will all be straightened out and go away.
All right, let's go to the next day. You receive an email from the distinguished foreign affairs columnist for the Washington Post, David Ignatius. It reads in part, at the suggestion of my friend Christopher Andrew, your mentor, I am writing to ask if you would be willing to talk with me about Mike Flynn. A bit of background about me. I am a foreign affairs columnist for the Washington Post. I also have a long-standing interest in intelligence issues, have written 10 spy novels, and in this role was invited by Christopher Andrew, to speak to his seminar a dozen years ago where I met a lot of smart graduate students, a group in which Chris says you're one of his best students ever. I'll stop reading there. It's a very friendly email, but David Ignatius wants to talk to you about Mike Flynn. Did you talk to him? Did you respond to this email?
I didn't talk with him. I did respond to the email. And in the same vein, I just could not understand why somebody who's living in London and met somebody in a work setting 3 years previously is suddenly being bombarded from various U.S. journalists with these emails about my relationship with the man.
What did you tell David Ignatius in your response the next day?
So the same way that I sent them the email saying that the only time I ever there is no relationship with General Flynn, met him once in the company of over a dozen other people, spoke to him in public settings about my research, and that's it.
All right. Now, what is discordant here? A lot of things, but one of the things is that Christopher Andrew, your mentor, told you in the middle of December, they've made a mistake. Don't worry about it. Now it's more than 2 months later. The mistake is growing. You're being contacted by the major media in America. 2 of them, Wall Street Journal. We'll go now to the 3rd, March 4th. My timeline, I hope this is accurate. The New York Times contacts you. What does the New York Times want to know?
Same thing. Again, somebody gave, so again, I'm a relatively unknown woman, living in London. Somebody gave this prominent U.S. journalist my email address, and somebody, because the questions are all the same, right? This is the 3rd person now from U.S. Contacting me again about my relationship with General Flynn that are non-existent. And at that point, it begins to look very odd because again, they contact me about, relationship with General Flynn. And again, I reply, the standard email, which is I only met General Flynn once and surrounded by, 12 others. And I talked to him about my research, and that's it. There's nothing more to it.
So in a matter of days, you're contacted by the Wall Street Journal, who allege a conversation, a relationship, intrigue with the director of the intelligence agency in 2014, 2015, 2016, we don't know, a man who goes on to become an integral part of the Donald Trump's campaign, a man who is named National Security Advisor at the first moment of the new presidency, a man who is now, as of February 28th, March 1st, and March 4th, has resigned from that post. This is all the news in America. The same General Flynn. But these distinguished newspapers want to know about your relationship with him. All right, here we are. Svetlana, it is now March 18th, Wall Street Journal. I read from the lead. This is an article by Carol Lee, Rob Berry, Shane Harris, Christopher Stewart. Dateline Washington, March 18th, 2017. Former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn interacted with a graduate student with dual Russian and British nationalities at a 2014 UK security conference, a contact that came to the notice of U.S. intelligence, but that Mr. Flynn, then the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, didn't disclose, according to people familiar with the matter. Second graph, Mr. Flynn met Svetlana Lakova at the Cambridge Intelligence Seminar, a gathering of former intelligence officials hosted at Cambridge University in February 2014. Ms. Lakova at the time was a graduate student studying the history of Russian intelligence, according to two people who attended the event. There is no record, writes the Wall Street Journal, showing that Mr. Flynn reported his interaction with Ms. Lakova to security officials in the Defense Department, said a former senior U.S. official with knowledge of the matter. As the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is part of the Pentagon and the military's largest intelligence organization, Mr. Flynn was expected to notify officials about any contacts with foreigners he didn't know, particularly from an adversary nation such as Russia, the former official said. I'll stop there. The article goes on. Svetlana, this comes to your attention on March 18th. Can you remember what you thought when you read your name being used as a Russian agent?
And then the article goes on to say that the reason why this is so suspicious is because I could have been recruiting General Flynn. And I frankly didn't know what to say to that because Wall Street Journal is a reputable newspaper. My name is in there associated with this horrible story. And both before and after the article got published, we contact them and say, look, this is not true. So, for example, it specifically says in the article that I approached General Flynn. That's not true. So I was invited to that dinner by Richard Dilov and Christopher Andrew. And we were, everyone who attended the dinner with General Flynn were supposed to provide to the Defense Intelligence Agency our names 1 month in advance so that they checked our names out. So every person within that dinner was pre-checked, pre-screened, right? And I never approached General Flynn. He was introduced to me the same way that he was introduced to every other person at the dinner. I never approached him. And then the article also said that I sat at the dinner next to General Flynn. I didn't. I sat very far away from him. And both before and after the article was published, I tried to tell the Wall Street Journal that this is just not true and that there are photographs actually from the dinner that show that I was nowhere near him. And that's the first time I realized that this could be something way above my head, because no matter what I told them about the true events of the dinner, they didn't want to know. They didn't want to write the article that way, or they didn't want to correct the article after I approached them after publication. So they just insisted on keeping this article, which is online today.
Since the March 18th, 2017, has the Wall Street Journal ever retracted or corrected any of these statements? Have they been in contact with you about the errors in this article?
No.
And you're thinking today, March 18th, is this the article that made it very clear to you that you were the target of an operation? Did you understand that? You study operations. Did you feel it at the time?
Yes, because I understood that there might be some media, media excitement about something. But I thought for a reputable newspaper like that, if only you tell them the truth, like simple thing, right? That they say I sat next to General Flynn, and I write in providing photographs saying I did not sit next to General Flynn, right? That's a simple thing to correct, but they just would not do it.
Did you have an understanding at the time? What you know about Russian intelligence is extensive. You're an historian. Did you understand there's a name behind all this? Did you understand there was an operation directed at you?
No. I had a gut feeling that something was wrong, because no matter what I said to them, the story was pre-written, right? So it didn't matter. They didn't contact me to check the story with me. They just contacted me, and I assume were shocked that...
Right. You were shocked, but did you understand that they had a source?
I didn't realize it was an operation per se, but on the other hand, I also knew at that point that, if you put that together with the fact that the London Times reporter called me a Russian spy, and then there's this other story about me, in effect, being a Russian spy, trying to recruit the national security advisor, there was just something wrong. And the fact that nothing I gave them in terms of facts they would accept. That made me very concerned.
Svetlana Lukova, she is an historian. She's the author of And How Svetlana and I First Met, because I read and enjoyed and learned from her book, The Spy Who Changed History, the untold story of how the Soviet Union stole America's top secrets. It's a very enjoyable book. I recommend it. However, I did not realize at the time that we'd be inside an operation at the scale of Stalin's in the 1930s. She's also the author most recently of Spygate Exposed, which tells this story from Svetlana's point of view. We're recovering it now because every month and year that goes by, we learn more about the scale of this operation. And we haven't gotten to the part where the operation is exposed and conducts what you'd have to say is a cleaning up operation afterwards. We're still in the middle of that. We don't have all of it. We're telling the story before the final report is filed at the Justice Department and before the historians come to this primary material to give us a larger picture of Crossfire Hurricane. I'm John Batchelor, and this is the Friends of History Debating Society. To be continued with Svetlana Lukova.
He raids your fridge.
You're out of Barada.
Borrows your car without asking.
Scratches? What scratches?
He's your brother-in-law.
I'll pay you back.
He takes what's yours and there's nothing you can do. But when identity thieves want to take what's yours, you can do something. LifeLock by Norton monitors your info and alerts you to potential threats. If you become a victim, they can help fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but you can save up to 25% off your first year at LifeLock.com using promo code LifeLock.
¿Por qué esta Coca-Cola de McDonald's sabe tan bien? ¿Será la máquina? ¿Será el popote o el hielo? O quizás soy yo.
No sé, Diego, pero vámonos, ¿no? El ¿por qué esto sabe tan bien deal? Un refresco de cualquier tamaño por $1, solo en el $1, $2, $3 menú de McDonald's. Precios y participación pueden variar, no se puede combinar con cualquier otra oferta o combo mío. Coca-Cola es una marca registrada de The Coca-Cola Company.